Recording. Okay, excellent. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Discover the Supervisor Strengths Institute. Alicia and I decided to do this particular webinar because we felt like, we talk about the Supervisor Strengths Institute, but we never really go into any sort of depth. I mean, we have the website, but we wanted to give people an opportunity to learn a little bit more about how we developed it, why we developed it, what's in there, and why it's so important for you as a supervisor. And we also have on the call a few past participants who are going to share a little bit about their experiences. And you can ask them, like you can ask us questions, but you can also ask them questions for a little less, biased. Alicia and I think it's great, but we developed it. So there you go. Doot. And as promised, at the end, we will draw a winner from the people who are live today who will get a free seat at the Institute this summer. So huzzah. Okay, fantastic. And I guess without further ado, although I guess that was not really, that was part of the introduction. So we were already to doing. So let's move on. Oh, okay, it's Monday. It's Monday. Excellent.
It is.
Okay.
And this is the kind of witty banter that you can plan to get from us as well.
Yes.
I hope it's witty. I don't know. But when we think about why Anne and I worked to develop this, because we have worked in higher ed, our time together is over 30 years. And again, in that time, we have both obviously been supervised by other humans and have supervised others. And we also, of course, work with many great colleagues that are leading others. And we just really know that supervisors today are experiencing more stress. Again, that word unprecedented times, right? I think we're really tired of hearing that. And hopefully we're past some of that. But again, with everything that we have been managing, the state of the world, the state of higher ed, supervisors are more stressed than they really have been, it seems, in the past. Again, with that being overwhelmed, we know that a lot of folks are experiencing budget cuts or freezes, or as we're coming out of the end of this pandemic, hopefully, again, being asked to do more people's jobs with less people. And again, just taking care of students and others. Again, everybody in the world is experiencing a large amount of stress. And so again, how do we manage that? How do we help lead others through the great resignation or reshuffle or whatever terminology you'd like to use around that as well? But again, we're just seeing supervisors being more stressed, more overwhelmed. And also when folks are being moved, promoted, given the opportunity to lead and supervise, there just isn't a lot of training that comes along with that. And by there isn't a lot, typically there isn't any. It's just here, congratulations, we think you're wonderful, now do all these things, without a lot of training or a lot of support to go along with that as well. And so again, just thinking about what folks don't have, we definitely saw a need, and we want to help you as a supervisor have a better life and be able to lead the folks that you are interacting with even more effectively and efficiently.
Indeed. And what was surprising to us is, again, very little, if any, training for supervisors when they first start supervising or at any point in their career. But the impact of supervisors of you is huge. Gallup has found that 70% of employee engagement is directly related to the supervisor, to your direct supervisor, to, like, for you, it's your direct supervisor. For the people that you supervise, it's you. And that's a ton. And we always talk about student engagement, but employee engagement is just as important. If you're not engaged, and only 35% of supervisors are engaged, and just in the general population, it's 34%. So yay, supervisors, you're 1% more engaged than people you supervise. supervise, but but you're also more stressed than the people you supervise. And so the problem is that employees are almost 60% more likely to be engaged if they're supervised by someone who is engaged. And since that's only 35%, the chances of that happening are not great. And of course, one of the things that we hear from people is, oh, we just don't have the money for supervisor training. Like, it's just not in the budget. Like, it's, tough times. Yeah, totally. We get it. But the problem is disengaged supervisors, so supervisors who don't have the training they need and are not engaged, actually cost institutions, well, in the United States, billions and billions of dollars every year. And so to not invest in you as a supervisor, your institutions, both the one you're at now and previous ones, was you doing you and everyone on campus, including the students, a huge disservice. So again, all of these are why Alicia and I decided we need to do something. We need to create the training that isn't there so people can be successful in these jobs.
Absolutely. And so with that came the Supervisor Strengths Institute. So what we want to do in this little section is walk you through, again, what you can expect in the Institute, a little bit about our philosophy, and a little glimpse into each of the modules. And again, just overall what you can expect. So if we jump into thinking about, again, our philosophy, how do we approach this idea of supervisor support and training? First, of course, we start with current research. We are both Gallup certified strengths coaches, so we are in tune with what Gallup is doing because Gallup owns CliftonStrengths, but again, beyond that, they poll and research everything about everything. They do a ton of work around employee engagement, productivity, but even beyond that piece, again, thinking about what are neuroscientists, right? What are they finding about how do we manage stress? How do we show up at work? How do we work to have a happier life? How do we help lead others? And so again, taking research from across a whole host of areas, and again, really working to find out, to think about, to be in tune with what are we really learning about, again, how we lead, how we show up at work, how we live our lives, and how do we maximize that to our full potential, right? So with that, we also take a really holistic approach. Some leadership training is very, okay, this is what you do at work to be a good leader. The rest of the stuff outside of life, outside of your work hours, don't matter. But we just don't believe that to be true. We have not experienced that for ourselves or seemingly any of the folks that we know as human beings. And so again, thinking about just a holistic approach. How are you showing up? What's happening in your life? What are the stories that you have around, self-care, about leading others? Again, just all of the things, taking this really holistic approach. Like I mentioned, we are also CliftonStrengths certified coaches. And with that means we really come from a place of what are the things that you do well, because what the talents and the places that you excel are incredibly unique to you. How do we maximize that? We don't want to turn you into some other human being. We don't want you to feel like, well, if only I were good at X, if only I were good at coming into a room and commanding the space and talking with every single person, then things would be better, right? Again, we want to focus on what are you really good at? Are you really good at those one-on-one interpersonal relationships? How do we help build that and lead that into your strengths-based leadership approach? We really want to help you maximize on your talents and your potential. And then the last piece, again, really thinking about our philosophy is, we could tell you all these things, you can read all the books, but what is most important is how you implement it. And so it is our goal that you walk away with a plan in place of what you're going to do, that you have actual tangible things to be working on as we go through the 8 weeks together. That's part of the reason we also have the individual coaching calls, so that we can really help you think about and figure out how do you implement what it is that you've been learning.
Absolutely. So, just a little bit more about Clifton Strengths, because we do use this framework throughout the training. And what people don't really, when we say talent, we usually think about, oh, juggling, or, I'm good at sports, or maybe, oh, I'm really good at math, or, I'm really good with people, which those are talents. But what people don't really understand is that your talents impact everything you do. They're impacting right now what you're listening for, how you're interpreting the things that we say. When you leave this meeting, it's going to impact boom, 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 all the meetings that you have for the rest of the day. And yes, I'm assuming you're just filled with meetings the rest of the day. And so the problem is when people don't understand this and they don't know how their talents are showing up, their talents could be showing up as strengths. So helping you be productive and achieve your goals as effectively and efficiently as possible. But there's just as good a chance, especially when you're stressed, of them showing up as weaknesses. For weaknesses, we often think, oh, it's the stuff I'm not good at. Those are really my weaknesses. But we have found that really weaknesses are more of your talents showing up in ineffective ways. So ways that are getting in your way and preventing you from achieving those goals and doing the things that you want to do. So the reason we love this framework is that, we're going to be talking about, oh, this is, what research says, like good ways to supervise. But if you have one set of talents, it's going to look very different, that implementation, than someone else. And so by using Clifton Strengths, it really allows you to customize the content application for yourself. Because if you've been through other trainings, of course, a lot of times with trainings, we just learn it. We're like, oh, I've learned it. And we don't apply it, which is part of the problem. But other times it's, oh, wow, this sounds amazing. And you go to apply it and it doesn't work for you. And the reason it doesn't work for you is because whoever wrote it, whoever did those trainings, don't have your talent set. So this actually allows you to figure out what's going to work for me. So when you implement it, you're successful.
It is true. So again, just what are you getting when you sign up to be part of the Institute? The entire package consists of 8 weeks of online leadership training. And so those are modules that you will have access to. We will release one each week so that we all try to stay together as a cohort. That content is about an hour long, give or take, each week, that you can absorb throughout the week. Again, you'll have that content each week. Also with that, we will have a weekly call. So altogether we end up with 9 calls because we have one before the first week of content is released, to again set expectations, hear what it is that you're hoping to get, all of those kinds of things, to get to meet the cohort that we're going through the Institute with this time. On top of that, you also get 3 individual success and accountability calls. And so that is a one-on-one meeting with Anne or myself to really talk about what's really resonating with you. Is there a specific challenge that you're facing? Again, how do we help you implement what it is that you are taking in, and how do we help you, again, make it tangible, make it something that's really going to benefit you, and again, provide some of that outside support of somebody that's not involved in your institution or your life or any of those things, just being that outside support as well. Like we mentioned, we are Clifton Strengths certified coaches, and so we love getting to use Clifton Strengths as that shortcut into identifying your talents. With the Institute, you do get the Clifton Strengths for Managers report. It's the only Clifton Strengths assessment report that you get your top 10 strengths with. And so what they have really tried to do with this one, because again, they have found that managers account for 70%, right? Make a huge difference in employee experience. And so this manager's report has very specific and tangible things, again, for you to be paying attention to with your unique talent set. And then on top of all of that, again, we will go through a lot. We know it will be a lot to take in 8-9 weeks, but you will have access to the modules for over a year, for the course of a year. And so again, once you have really worked through that first piece that you want to implement, you can come back in and really, if there's something else you want to dive into, if there's something you want to re-listen to after it's been 3 or 6 months, again, you have access to your content for an entire year.
Okay, so speaking of that content, we don't want to go super in depth because who has the time, but we do want to kind of walk you through each of the modules so we can talk about why we developed it this way and how they connect to one another. So the very first thing we do is talk about energy management. And we often think of time as being our most valuable resource, but that is false. Energy is our most valuable resource. And so we talk about how energy really impacts our minds and our bodies and how that is at play every single day that we're at work or, well, wherever we are. It doesn't really matter. We help you identify where your energy is really going, because right now it's probably all over the place and you're being stretched pretty thin. And even if you don't know from an energetic standpoint what I'm talking about, you're probably like, oh, I do feel stretched pretty thin. So yeah, good point. But when you start doing this, it's going to allow you to start channeling that energy into more activities that are actually aligned with what you're doing and what your ultimate goal is, as opposed to just doing things for the sake of doing them, or because, Alicia mentioned stories earlier, because you have a story that's what I'm supposed to be doing. This is really about understanding the very basic idea of energy, because we build on that the entire time. We're strengths coaches. And what we have discovered after using this for years and years is that this is really the ultimate energy management tool, because when you're using your talents in a productive way, AKA as a strength, then you're really maximizing your energy at any given time. And just to give you, we're not going to do this for each of the modules, but we wanted to give you a little bit of a taste for the first module to just kind of see what you're getting. And we're going to actually give you a handout as well that you can actually use, whether you take we certainly hope you take the Institute this summer, but if not, it'll still give you a way to start tracking this. So again, energy, your most valuable resource. And we only have 90 to 120 minutes of peak mental energy per day. And when I say peak mental energy, that doesn't mean your bestest energy ever in the world. That, of course, is mitigated by, well, did I sleep well last night? Or was I up late with the children? Or watching TV or doing work? Am I not feeling well? All of these things impact that. But the absolute best energy you have, at most, 2 hours. After that, you have about 5 hours of pretty good energy, but the rest is just not great. And so again, hopefully this can help you see why focusing on energy versus time is so important, because yes, you have the same amount of time each day, but if you use all your energy up at the beginning of the day, even though you still have time, you have no energy and you're not getting anything done. And I'm going to let Alicia jump in here in a second, but you are where your attention is. So if your thoughts are going 1,000 miles per hour and you're like, bing, 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 I've heard it called ping pong brain, then your energy is all over the place. So we really want to help you try and direct and focus that energy. So you're getting not more done as in the sense of checking off things on your checklist, but rather you're getting more intentional, important work that's helping you get and achieve your goals quicker.
It's true.
Alicia.
So when we think about, well, how do I even start paying attention to this, right? Like, yes, I hear all those things you're saying. I have ping pong brain. I am actively currently multitasking as we speak, right? So one of the things that we will encourage you to do is to really, again, be thinking about where is your energy going, because it is more impactful to pay attention to your energy over your time. And so when we think about that, again, we're going to give you a worksheet to actually be able to start doing this, but really starting to think about what is it that you're doing every day, right? I know we have all had the experience of, Well, I was at work today. I did a lot of things, but I don't really know what I did, right? I've walked away and I don't really know what I've accomplished. I know I worked really hard and I feel tired, but I'm not entirely sure what I did. So we're going to really work to be intentional about paying attention to what we're doing. And then beyond just paying attention to what is it that we're doing, be paying attention to how do those activities impact our energy? Were they things that gave us energy and made us feel more excited and again engaged in the work that we're doing? Or was it a meeting or a committee meeting or a task that was just incredibly draining? Just thinking about, again, we begin to track this so that we can notice the patterns of what we're doing. And so again, this sheet that you can see on the screen is what you'll be getting. It is the daily energy log. And so again, regardless of whether you can join the Institute or not, we really want to encourage you to do this on your own. It will help you. Again, paying attention to what are the activities that I'm doing, just jotting down the time, the activity, and then did it give you energy or did it drain your energy? If you love a spreadsheet, throw this on a spreadsheet instead of using our worksheet. That's totally fine. But just start paying attention to the things, again, that are giving you energy, the things that are draining your energy. Maybe it's tasks, maybe it's people, maybe it's a certain time of day. But the more we notice what's happening, the more that we can be in tune with that and really work to shift what it is that we're doing when and paying attention to what matters.
And I will send this out with the replay. So you'll be getting this in your email so you can print it out or whatever you'd like to do with it, within reason, of course. Okay, so week 2. So we have the basic understanding of energy, why it's important. So then we move on and dive into strengths. So of course, you're going to get a code to take your Clifton Strengths assessment. You don't have to do it for the first week, but for the second week, we're going deep. So it's really about identifying what your talents are through the assessment, which we love the assessment because A, it's a shortcut to know what your talents are, but it also gives you a language that you can use to better understand yourself and express yourself to other people. And that includes understanding and being able to have conversations with your team if you all do the assessments. It's also about increasing your awareness of how your talents show up, because like I mentioned earlier, if your talents are showing up as weaknesses and you don't know about it, then just like Alicia said, I was busy all day, did so many things. And if you went back and reflected and really looked at them and said, oh, I did a lot of stuff that really didn't get me anywhere near my goals. It was just stuff that I did because someone told me to, or I wasn't prioritizing well. So part of this is understanding how are your talents showing up for you on any given day at any given moment. And again, once you understand that, you can start to better manage those talents to make sure that they are showing up as strengths more often than they're showing up as weaknesses, and thus better manage your energy. Indeed. Alicia, week 3.
Then we move on to week 3. Week 3 is where we really jump into thinking about stress and self-care. Again, coming back to that holistic approach, we really need to understand the true impact that stress is having on our lives, both our personal and our work lives, right? All of these things intertwined, really getting a true sense of what that does, again, to our brains, to our bodies. A lot of times we have an idea, but we don't take the time to actually, again, sit with that and figure out ways to move through. And so we have moved stress and self-care. This is early in the process because we want you to be actively practicing that as we move through the rest of the 5 weeks together. We'll encourage you to develop a daily self-care practice. Again, self-care can be things like taking a walk at lunch instead of working through lunch and never leaving, right? Maybe it's, bigger than that, but we really are going to encourage you. What is a daily self-care practice that is, again, realistic and something that you can truly implement? And how do we begin to use stress management to improve your overall well-being and, again, how you show up, how you impact the rest of the folks that you're leading?
And in week 4, we're going to help you discover your authentic leadership style. And this is more focused on Clifton Strengths, but keep in mind that even with stress management, we're talking about stress in general, but we're having you reflect on how is this being further impacted by the talents that I have. So for the authentic leadership style, we're really going back to that vocabulary, that report that you got. And what are the words that describe you? What are the phrases that describe you? You know, how are you in terms of your talents? You know, how are you showing up on a daily basis? And then from there, we help you develop your own leadership statement that really kind of, you know, this is me in a nutshell. And how can I use that statement to better prioritize my time and energy? Because it's really, really easy to give into that myth that a leader should be good at everything. But that is false. It's not realistic. And when we fall into that trap, again, our energy, boom, 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 all over the place. Focusing on your authentic leadership style allows you to be very focused on what you're doing every day and making that difference for your team and getting where you and your team want to get to more quickly, because you can use it to, again, prioritize what you're doing.
And when we move into week 5, this is also where we begin to really start thinking about how do we coach your team, right? Again, research across the board is showing that folks are looking for a coach. They're not looking for a boss. And that is a shift from maybe where we have been led before, or even the current style that we have. And so what is that? How do we help bring out the best in our team? How do we push them to be their best? But also, again, how do we really help them grow in places where they need to grow, right? Because we all need to do that. We will help you develop a comprehensive one-on-one agenda so that you can be very intentional about your time. We will talk about why that one-on-one piece is incredibly important. And then again, we'll think about, again, as coaching as a whole, how do you maximize your energy use? How do you decrease your stress? And when we think about this, this will make a huge impact both on you and your team. And so again, thinking about moving from coach to boss, week 5 is really where we get into the outward, a little bit more outward focus of thinking about leading your team.
Then on week 6, we pivot from coaching, or not even pivot really, like we're taking that a little bit further and we're talking about managing your team's performance. And we have found that this is one of the most challenging things for supervisors. And by challenging, A, haven't really gotten any good training on how to do it effectively, and B, really, really stressful, because we're talking about both setting clear expectations to begin with, but then holding people accountable. So for both of those, we lead you through why it's so important to set clear expectations, why it's so important to hold people accountable, and we help you come up with a system that goes along with coaching so that in that comprehensive agenda that we talked about in week 5, how can you make sure that at each meeting that you're having with your folks, excuse me, allergies, you're hitting on that expectation piece, the accountability piece, and any developmentalness, any development that goes with that, because, hey, these were the expectations, you met them, hooray, let's celebrate. These are the expectations, you didn't quite meet them. Let's have a discussion about why that is. And hot tip, it almost always goes back to people's strengths showing up as weaknesses. So
true that. So then 2 weeks left, we have week 7, and really thinking about change, right? Because as you are going through this, you are going to change as a leader, and your team is going to experience that change as well. And then even outside of you, things are always changing, right? I think we have definitely seen that incredibly heightened over the last few years. And so how do we deal with change? How does our brain and body react? How do we work with that to help ourselves and our teams deal with change? How do we really do that? How do we, again, help us prepare when things shift rapidly? How do we help our team be prepared to do that as well? And through all of that, again, coming back to how do we minimize the stress for you and your team during change? Because, again, we know that things change all the time in our roles, and the more that we can do to be prepared for that, even if we don't know what the change is coming, the more that we can work to understand how we react to change, what are the stories we have around this, again, how are our talents going to help us in the midst of, again, ever-changing circumstances, and how might they get in the way, right? How do we be aware of that? How do we help ourselves deal with that well so that we can lead our teams well through that also?
So then in the last module, we're going to actually put rubber to the road. We're going to focus on implementing change. So we're going to help you, or we're not, well, we will help you. We'll support you in creating your own action plan, because as you just heard, we cover a lot of information and we don't expect you to implement all of this. That would be insane. And I think some of our past participants can speak to that in a few minutes. But we want you to come up with a plan to do some of it. And going along with that, how are you going to make sure that you have effective systems? And we talk a lot about systems and habits throughout the course, because that's really going to make sure that, like, if you have those in place, then your goal for your action plan will be easy. If your goal doesn't match your habits and your systems, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to get there. And again, you're going to be able to customize this based on your talents, your team's talents, and your team's needs, your organization's needs. So this is all customized for you, and we're here to support you as you go through it. Okay.
All right, so let's move through a handful of those frequently asked questions, things you might be thinking. And then again, we have some of our past participants that will have shared just a little bit as well. And so frequently asked question number one is, how much time does this take, right? What is the weekly commitment? So again, we will have a 1 hour live call each week. So that's 1 hour that you'll be committing. And then the online modules are approximately an hour, give or take. So that's, again, if you add those together, 2 hours a week. And then we have homework that we encourage you to do throughout the week as well. And so again, an example of that was the energy log, right? From the first module where we gave a little bit more of an in-depth look into that first module. So each week is a little bit different. We do provide worksheets, things we want you to be thinking about, reflecting as you go through the week. Again, each week's going to be a little bit different. We hope that we did not build them to be incredibly time intensive, because we know what a valuable resource our time and energy is. And so things, we hope are very tangible for you to be working through. And so, I don't know, I would say, 2 to 3 hours, 3 hours max a week would be my assumption. The next question, what if I feel too overwhelmed at work? Yeah, what if you do, right? Not that anybody here would be experiencing that, but if you feel too overwhelmed at work, you really, really need this. And I know that it might feel, I already have too much on my plate, I cannot add another thing. But if we, what's that quote? If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. And so if you don't take time to break that cycle and to invest in yourself and invest in your team, things aren't really going to change, right? We can't promise that we're going to control everything outside and magically things are going to be, you're never going to feel overwhelmed again. But we can help you figure out how to manage that, how to advocate for yourself and your team, and again, really be able to try to hone in and figure out what it is that's causing the overwhelm, what are the stories that are adding to it. But again, at the end of the day, to answer this question, if you feel too overwhelmed, again, if you keep doing what you're doing, nothing's going to change. And we really want to help you make a shift if that's how you're feeling. Okay, next question. What if I can't make one of the live calls? Of course, we want you to be there for the live call. There is a real power in going through this collectively as a cohort. That's why we do a live call. But if you can't make it, we do record those each week. And we want you to still be a part of that. We know, especially as we're heading into the summer, there could be a vacation that you already have planned or something that comes up, a sick kid, whatnot. If you can't make it, we understand. We're not going to, shame you for not being there, but we really, it is really beneficial if you can join the live calls as well. And then the last one for this slide is, what is the benefit? Why do we do that? Again, we review kind of the content that we had talked about that you have absorbed for the last week. Going through this as a cohort, we really hope, again, that you're hearing from others. It is a conversation. It's not just Ann and I speaking the whole time. I think we have had, each time we've run the Institute, somebody from from the Institute almost every week has shared some insight that somebody else has really taken away. In our last Institute, one person said, the thing that I've just really been focusing on when we've been talking about time and energy is while I'm driving into work, I think of my 3 priorities for that day, and that's really how I'm implementing this. And that really resonated for a handful of the other folks, right? Again, when we think about this idea of talents and strengths, Ann and I have our own talents and strengths in the way that we see the world. And so again, when we get a group of people together, we have an even richer experience together. And so that is why we do the live calls together.
Okay, just a few more frequently asked questions. What are the payment options? So if you register online, you can just pay with a credit card. But if you don't want to pay with a credit card, if you'd prefer to pay with an invoice, you can absolutely do that. You just email me and I'll send you the secret code that will let you register for free, and I will send you an invoice. This is true as well if, there's a group of us that want to enroll together and we just want to pay together. So that works as well. We also do know that in the summer, some people are more sticky. Their business departments are a little bit more, the fiscal year ends at the end of June. So if that's your business department, we're happy to invoice it into 2 parts, if that is helpful. Do we offer group discounts? We do. And we keep it simple. If you have 10 or more, it's 10% off. And if you have 20 or more, 20% off. Who shouldn't enroll in the Institute? And you may be thinking, well, why would you encourage people to not to do this? Well, if you're not in the right mindset, then that can be very problematic, because we do take a very holistic approach. We do take a very strengths focused approach. And a lot of the homework that we have you do is reflection. And it's reflection about you. I know that as supervisors, Alicia and I have both encountered this, oh my gosh, employee XYZ, if they were just gone, my life would be so much better. But this Institute is not about what's wrong with my employees and how do I get them to do what I want them to do. We're absolutely going to talk about performance management, but a lot of what this is self-reflection and you making the changes that you need to make to be a better supervisor. So that's what it's really focused on. So if you don't have that mindset, then this is not really a great investment for you. And I would say, I guess I would add to that, if you're already this far in the process and you're on this call, you're familiar with our work, you don't really feel that way, but we do want to point that out. Next, we have two past participants here. We have Carrie and Brady. And before we dive into a few bullet points that I've put up just for flow purposes, do you have any comments about any of those frequently asked questions?
I think the what you said about who shouldn't enroll in this, I think like you said, being in the right mindset for this is going to be really important. And I think I can't remember if I had this conversation with Ann or Alicia, one of you, about moments where like I entered this course a couple of months after I started a new job as a supervisor, and so it still felt like I was getting the hang of things around here. And I was feeling a lot of the stress that they talked about of like, can I make the time for this thing? And I really think it is one of those things that you have to invest in yourself. You have to be willing to put in this work, because I think it is just valuable for yourself as a supervisor. So just thinking about who should enroll, I think ultimately, like, if you're not in that mindset, maybe try the following semester. But if you can challenge yourself to take that time out of your week, I think it's going to be really beneficial for you. So I like what you shared, and I just wanted to add that little addendum.
Thanks, Brady.
Yeah. And to echo that, I actually had passed on the Institute in the summer because I had a lot of new team members, thinking I didn't have time. So I picked it up in the fall. But after experiencing it, I would echo what Brady says. It really is that investment in yourself. And the earlier you could go through this training, the better. I think as a new manager, it's always going to be beneficial, but I definitely think it would have helped me, to do it even 3 months earlier to kind of give me that leg up.
Awesome. Excellent. Okay, so I have just a few, like Carrie and Brady, I have a few prompts just because like you guys may have questions, and absolutely, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat or shout out. But I just wanted to, make this a little easier for everybody in case people are still thinking of their questions. Did either of you have any concerns about enrolling? And I think, Carrie, you actually just answered this. So good job. Way to mind read. But any other thoughts on that or worries that you want to talk about?
And kind of as I mentioned, I guess I kind of mentioned this too, of like, yeah, my biggest concern was like, do I have the time for this? Do I have the time to take out of my week? And really, I could probably get on a soapbox about like work culture in higher ed or work culture in America, but like I think it's pretty easy to get in that attitude of I don't have the time to invest in myself. It's kind of like saying I don't have time to change the oil in my car. So eventually, like that car is gonna break down if you're not taking the time to pay attention to your habits and practices. I think this may come up in a different like bullet point or a question, but like there's so much like practical application in this course that I think will help you to, I guess, stick with that analogy, will help you learn how to change the oil in your car in a good way, so that you're more effective in the future.
I love that analogy. Thank you, Brady.
Indeed. Absolutely. Okay. What was your biggest aha moment going through the Institute?
I think one of them for me was realizing, because we tend to think that we're the only people that have ever encountered these challenges or are facing some of these obstacles. And so being on the group calls every week with colleagues from colleges all across the state, many of whom I already knew in some capacity, it was just very reassuring, like, oh, like these are common challenges, these are common questions. I'm not in this by myself. Ann and Alicia, they understand where we've come from. So I think that was very reassuring to me to know that we're all kind of in it together and experiencing the same types of things.
Awesome.
I definitely felt that too. And I think one of the exercises, the thought experiments that we go through is the story I tell myself versus an alternate story. And it really, I am pretty hard on myself in a lot of ways. And so it really helped me like re-examine like what are the assumptions I'm making about my performance as a supervisor right now, which are really dragging down all sorts of other areas of my work life and in some cases my personal life, of the stress that you're carrying and all that. And so I think being able to share an alternate story and to think through like, okay, maybe instead of this idea of like, well, I don't have the time to be an effective coach for my supervisees right now, so why bother? I need to focus on other things. It again just had to shift this mindset of it's always worthwhile to invest in your employees, right? Just like I said, like there's regular maintenance that you have to do to stay sharp. There's things that you have to do to keep your team sharp. And so I think the alternate stories helped me kind of get out of some of these areas where I was a little stuck previously.
Awesome. Excellent. Okay. What did you find? And maybe it's a repeat of some of these, but what was the most beneficial part of the Institute for you?
I think I've said this in the testimonials I've provided. And I'll preface this by saying I do not have achiever in my top 10, but I have responsibility. And by God, if I sign up for something, I am going to do it right. And I'm going to invest 110%. And so I think for me, something that I think it was Anne, but in the last call, they mentioned like, you don't have to do everything we talked about. Like, pick the thing that is most relevant to you and go do that thing, and then you will have demonstrated success. And so for me, that was implementing one-on-ones, and I've continued to kind of grow and build on those. But just that reassurance, because I really would be someone that's like, okay, I need to review all of these modules, and I need to make sure that I'm doing every single thing. And if I'm not fulfilling my obligation, here. So that has just really helped me to frame that, like, focus on the things that are most relevant to you. It might be different for everybody, and do that one thing.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I appreciated how practical everything was. I know this because I had read this book previously, but like some of the exercises are around like kind of some of the concepts you might have read in Atomic Habits. If anybody's read that book, really fantastic work. But again, I think sometimes I struggle with focus in these things. Focus is not anywhere close to my top 10 in strengths. And I think in the really in most jobs in higher ed, the scope of the work is so big that it can be easy to bounce from thing to thing and not like prioritize. And so a couple of things I appreciated was that those practical exercises that we would do to say like, okay, focus on this thing. As we talk about implementing changes, what are the practical things you can do to make a change, to take care of yourself, to do that stuff? And for me, that most I think came out in the exercise where a couple of us talked about setting 3 priorities at the beginning of your workday to focus on, which, at first glance, it doesn't maybe seem that novel, because it's like, yeah, maybe some of you do that already. I did not, though. So to me, it was like incredibly valuable to talk that through and say like, yeah, it's really important to just at the beginning of the day, set your focus, set your priorities, especially if that's something that you struggle with. So there's so many practical things that even if something is maybe not in your wheelhouse previously, I think they'll be easy on ramps to picking up these good practices.
I just love hearing you guys talk about what you took away, because again, and we built this because that's what we want for y'all, right? That's what we want for all of us, to have just a better life in general. And again, hearing y'all talk about what you've taken away just makes me very happy. So thank you guys for both being here and for sharing. And also, Brady, I love all of your car analogies: on ramps, changing the oil, all that good stuff. It's awesome. All right. So for other folks
Does
that are
anybody?
yeah, other folks on the call, if you have any other questions for, I almost mixed their name together as one word, Carrie or Brady, you can either just unmute or you could throw it in the chat if you have a question for them that we haven't covered yet.
TikTok. Anyone?
I feel like, I wonder, and this is maybe for Ann and Alicia too, do you feel like you end up becoming like people's personal counselors, and they're just like dumping everything on you, and you're just like, yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no, that's a wonderful question.
That's probably like, in my mind, I'm gonna be like, okay, and this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah, that's a great question.
Counseling background. What is it?
Brady or Carrie, do either of you want to answer that first?
Well, I have described them as counselors for your job. That's what I tell everybody. And I did actually opt, and another lady that completed the training with me, we both decided to continue on with the individual coaching sessions after the Supervisor Strengths, because they were so valuable. So I don't know if they feel like we're dumping all of our problems on them, but I definitely call them my work counselors, and it has been very, very valuable to continue to apply those strengths to specific things at the office.
Thank you, Carrie.
I had one other thing I was gonna just like processing through about the person, like, is this the right fit for you? And like, I have a great team. My team works really well. Like, I don't necessarily, like, I'm sure there's things I could do to be a better supervisor and support system for them. I don't have any concerns with my team. Like, I just got the right one, right? Like I'm just blessed in that sense. But I went through a leadership institute within our college that our president put on, and we read the 360 leader. And so like I think a lot about like leading from where I am and like helping lead people above me or like in line with me and trying to be that person. So do you feel like that is a good fit? In my mind, it's like the negative part of me that is probably not right. It's like, I need to sign them up for this. That would make my life better, which is probably not right. I can just processing out loud. But is that a good fit if you're in that mode?
From my perspective, I would say yes, absolutely. Because when we're talking about that idea of setting expectations and accountability, that doesn't just go to the people that you're leading. There's the saying that you teach people how to treat you. And that goes in personal life and work life, right? And so if there are folks that are coming to mind like, well, if I could just get you to do what you're supposed to do, or if I could sign you up for this so that you were good at your job, again, figuring out how do you, again, continue to have expectations and accountability for even folks that you're not leading, and carry through in the chat. Same thing, you're hearing from folks with all different sorts of strengths. It helps you expand your understanding of working with all different types of people. So that, of course, is incredibly helpful. Again, going back to your first question as well, thinking about, like, we're happy to be people's work counselors, right? We don't work with you. We get to talk with you for a couple hours, and we're definitely invested in you and your success, but we're also not at work with you every day, right? And so again, thinking about if your concern is around, well, if I start moving into a coach instead of a boss with the people that I'm leading, or these kinds of things, are they going to do that to me? And again, so much of that goes back to expectations, accountability. We talk about boundaries. And so all of these things, it all works together. Becoming a coach for your team does not mean you become their counselor. It means we are working to be developmental and push them, right, to be their best. And I'm glad to hear you have a really wonderful team, and wonderful teams can continue to grow, right? Wonderful teams can continue to do really good things. And not to be negative Nancy in any way or wish any of your people to leave, but we're also still in the middle of the Great Resignation, right? People are leaving at, again, unprecedented rates. And so even though your team is wonderful now, maybe you'll have a wonderful opportunity to bring new people in, right? Or maybe you'll have the really hard experience of losing someone and, again, hopefully getting to bring somebody back in on that. And so again, just everything to be proactive in all of those spaces is what comes to my mind as well.
Well, and like my people are good, so I'm going to push them to move up and beyond, and not like you have to stay here so I can keep you. That's not me.
Yes.
In my mind, that's not a good supervisor. Like I need to train them up to move up. But
absolutely.
Excellent point. Any other questions before we? Thank you, Dee, for all your questions. Excellent. Okay. So I know it's almost whatever that next o'clock is, 2:00. So just very quickly, how much does it cost? And you probably have already looked at the website, but if you added all this stuff up together, it would be over $2,500 in total value. Our standard rate is $790.95, but our early bird rate, which ends May 1st on my birthday, which was just kind of a coincidence. Well, actually, I picked that day because that seemed like the right timing, but you save $200 if you sign up by the 1st. So only $595. And if you, since you were so nice as to join us today, if you enroll by Friday, you get the early bird rate, plus we'll throw in an additional 30-minute coaching session, individual coaching session, which again, Carrie has said she buys more of them. So yeah, you're right. So you get an extra one for free. So that is the investment that you would be making in yourself and, quite frankly, your team. Okay. So just real quick, I want to who will benefit if you're tired of being tired, if you feel like you're overwhelmed or on the verge of burnout, because even if you have a great team, if you're still, you and your great team are trying to do way too much work than is realistic, that's a big problem. If you are struggling with team issues, this is great for you. If you feel like I'm never going to get caught up, this is great for you. And if you just want to better support your team and better support yourself, then we really do. And if, you know, this has been vibing with you or really resonated with you, then we think it would be a good fit. Okay. So all that, oh, there's 2 people, chat. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, so we said, if you came here live, a few people couldn't be here today live, but those of you who are, so I want you to pick a number between 1 and 20 and just put it in the chat. I think, let's see. Where'd Susan go? Susan was here.
Yeah, Susan maybe had to go to our next meeting.
I guess she did. Yes. So, okay. And I have written down on this piece of paper. So like I've written down the number. Okay. So everybody who's still here did it. Should be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So my number is 18. So Marianne, you're the winner. Yes. But for, well, the rest of you is Dee and Brittany at this point. But hopefully, if you're excited about this, we would encourage you to sign up by Friday, and then you get all the bonus stuff and the early bird rate. If you have any questions that we haven't answered up to this point, you know, there's our contact information. There's a little QR code that you can bleep just to go to the page. If you're like, oh, I'll just do it right now before I forget. But thank you so much for joining us. And Alicia, anything else? Are you going to wrap us out?
I will not wrap us out, but thank you all for being here. Thank you, Brady and Carrie, for joining us and again sharing about your experience. Again, if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We really hope to see you soon. I hope your life be easier.
Yay.
Yay. All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Have a good rest of the day, everybody.